In this bonus lesson, we'll be adding 3 different effects to your 3D printable file here and sharing them on social media. Let's zoom out a little bit and make a duplicate of Suzanne with Shift D. And notice I can move it all around, and then just let's lock it down with X on the keyboard and go ahead and land it right there just with a left click. And let's make one more. So just again, Shift D on the X axis, and now we're done. Let's go ahead and add some cool 3D printing effects. So we'll do the first Suzanne model here. First effect, make sure you have the first Suzanne selected and go to your Modify tab, and we'll add the modifier Subdivision Surface. And look, right away, the edges are already smoothing out. So let's crank these up a little bit, maybe to 4 on each one of these. And notice that it gets smoother and smoother each time. You may have to re-flatten the bottom there. It may have gotten a little rounded, but this could be 3D printed as well. Let's go ahead and check it. So let's go to 3D printing tab and check all. Looks like we still have 0 non-manifold edges, so win, win, win. We are waterproof and watertight. And looks like we have 40 overhanging faces. So let's go take a look at that in edit mode by hitting Tab and Alt A to deselect and click on overhanging faces. So it's still saying similar to the other one, but I think it could be 3D printed if the base was re-flattened. So let's export it out. So we'll tell Blender where we want to put our final STLs, and we'll put them in the STL folder and rename this one Surface and click export. Notice you'll get the blue confirmation down here once it's complete. And now let's go on back to object mode and add effects to the second model in the middle here. So with the middle one, we're going to do something a little crazy, and we're going to do a remesh. So let's remesh, and instead of doing sharp, let's switch it to blocks and then start cranking up this octree depth. And you'll notice it starts to look more and more like Suzanne the monkey, but kind of in like an 8-bit look. So I'm going to do somewhere in the middle, maybe this one with the number 7 or 8. I kind of like that. So now it's got this really strange kind of blocky look going on. Again, you'd have to flatten that one back out, but let's go ahead and export that one. We'll rename it Suzanne Blocks and go ahead and export. And then let's go to the third design. So just play around with some of these effects. And in this third one, we're going to go to the modifiers tab and add wireframe. So at first it looks like this little spider web, but if we increase the thickness over here, click in there and put just 3 and hit enter, and you'll notice we get this really cool kind of wireframe mesh, but we've got these points and spikes kind of shooting out of here. So let's uncheck our even thickness, and that will turn off the even thickness. And now we've got this really cool wireframe model. Again, you may have to flatten it a little bit at the bottom, but let's go ahead and rename this. We'll call this Suzanne Wireframe and export it. And you can also compound some of these effects. So just with the 3 that we use today, let's add another modifier on top of this one. So let's add maybe one we've already used, the Subdivision Surface. And right away we get this really cool Voronoi low poly look. So let's crank up the quality, go to maybe 4. Crank these all up to 4. Oh yeah, now we're talking. So now we've got this really funky Voronoi monkey that we could 3D print. Let's go ahead and rename that. We'll call that Voronoi. And now we could export that as well. And this one's going to take a lot longer to export because of how many polygons and triangles we just made. So you should get the confirmation down at the bottom once it's complete. And let's go to the first model again. And notice we turned it into this really nice smooth object. And if I turn on the overlays and go to wireframe, check that on, make sure you have it turned up all the way. You can see we have a ton of these wireframe meshes, just all these little squares everywhere. So what we're going to use to kind of lower that count is a new modifier called the Decimate. So Decimate will kind of just let you lower the ratio. So if I take the ratio down to half, say 0.5, and hit enter, you can see this lowered a lot, but not as much as I want to go. So let's go crazy with it. Let's cut it down to 0.001. All right, now we've got something really, really low poly and kind of abstract Suzanne here. So that is another one if you need to make something low poly. And let's go ahead and rename that and call it low poly and export. Now we've got all these new styles from this one model. So let's open them up in Simplify 3D or your slicer of choice. And I'm just going to shift click and drag all of these into one project here. And looky here, we've got a really cool layout of all these different styles of monkeys that we can 3D print on the fly. I think my favorite is this Voronoi and this digital blocky one, but I think we should 3D print them all out and check it out. Go ahead and 3D print your favorite one that you like. Maybe you came up with something completely different, and if you do, please share it with me on any social. I'm print that thing on everything, or you can hashtag print that thing, and I can't wait to see what you create.